Patrick, kicking like that shit. I do magic. Yeah, my flow's on destructo disc. Too afraid to cuff a bitch. This was on that sucker shit. Bitch, your price enough shit like.
Yo, what's going on, folks? Forest Green. Today, I have a special guest, of course, Splash.
What's up, people?
Awesome. So, today we're going to be talking about some certain things, like the Platonic concepts, and of course, the misconception, wasn't it, with the whole being a Platonic concept doesn't make you autoversal per se.
Yeah, it's a controversial topic, to say the least.
Yes, of course, I've had some questions to ask Splash so I can understand this premise, of course, because obviously, like, I understand like the basic, understanding of being autoversal, of course, like, not being bound by dimensions, bound by things, being above, like, like time and space, does it mean anything to you? You're above those, like, above those things. But like, so with Platonic concepts, could you explain to me a little more, like, why it doesn't make you autoversal?
All right, so obviously I've been preaching that it is in a lot of my debates, and I've been winning with that. But the issue I had was the argumentation given to me prior to the video I made, and the argumentation I was using by extension was incorrect. It didn't make it out of Earth. Essentially, my video was about basically everything I had been saying and everything that had been said up to that point about the reasoning for outerversal was incorrect. Naya ended up providing actual evidence that it is outerversal. However, Nairobi was the only person to produce relevant information that proved it. Basically, he showed an excerpt from a text that basically said Platonic concepts are above numbered dimensions, like above the concept of numbers themselves, which would make it outerversal. But before that, the argument would actually, from the text, just say they are the permanent form, which is still a form. And, I've heard some pretty fucking stupid arguments that. Oh, can I cuss on your channel?
Oh, of course.
I don't remember.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So I heard some really crap arguments that, like, oh, it's a form above all forms. Well, no, it still encompasses form. And it's stated in several texts that it's supposed to be beyond human comprehension. And the human is theoretically, like, there's string theory where it says we could possibly interpret dimensionality up through like the 10th dimension if we were to have 10 dimensions. But beyond that is beyond human actual comprehension of what each layer entails in dimensions. So it would honestly probably be, if you go off string theory, like the 11th dimension. Or, you could get up to hyperversal, but it would just be beyond our cognitive awareness. So it would be between complex multi to hyper based off the arguments we were using prior and the evidence we were giving prior.
Okay, I understand a little bit more now. Okay, it's fresh now in my mind. So obviously because of it's
kind of like if me and you were arguing about a sword.
Yeah.
And you make the claim this sword is the best sword.
Mm-hmm.
And when I ask you why is that sword the best sword, you say because it has glitter on it. And I'm like, that's not a relevant argument, or that's not a correct argument for your stance. But then your buddy says it's the best sword because it can cut through anything. And I'm like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So basically the arguments we were using prior just weren't relevant or weren't good enough. But the evidence Naya finally showed, which is he's the only one to show that specific shred of evidence, that is correct for being out of Earth. So my initial video, it's not wrong. What I was saying was the arguments we've been using are wrong.
Oh, I see.
He proposed a new idea or new evidence, which doesn't. So I'll make a part 2 with Naya, and we're going to explain it. But it doesn't make my video prior any less valid, because you're not going to win that style of argumentation on it being universal because you aren't providing the right evidence.
Oh yeah, I understand now. I see. It just wasn't okay. I get it now. It makes sense.
The presentation was wrong.
Okay, I see now. So I've got another thing as well. So this kind of changed certain things about certain characters. So like, because I think it was Carnifex, he said in the comment section that, you know, Darkseid is still outerversal, despite, you know, the Platonic concept statements. Like there's other evidence backing it up. Obviously, I haven't seen any other scans of, you know, of this, you know, of Darkseid being more outerversal, because I haven't seen any more like things to back it up, because I'm kind of still new to DC. I was wondering if you could just like explain to me if, you know, like more reasonings and more evidence to prove that Darkseid, you know, is still outerversal.
Okay, yeah. So I actually said, I don't know why the hell he was posting some of the things he posted. I actually said in that same video that Darkseid still had feats that put him at outerversal. It's just the labeling we were giving him, our reasoning for him. Like a lot of people, when they argue true form Darkseid's outerversal, they have one crutch, and that crutch is Platonic concept.
Oh yes.
But he has feats above that. For example, Soulfire Darkseid being able to combat the source, and we know that with the layering in DC, like there's fictional transcendences. So there would be multiple fictional transcendences outside of dimensionality, which obviously would be outerversal. So, like, just because we called him a Platonic concept, in the argument behind the Platonic concept up to that point, that didn't make Darkseid outerversal. That was wrong. But the feats outside of the labeling did make him outerversal.
Ah, right, I see. So those other feats help still back up and pretty much still contain the argument of him still being outerversal. Okay.
Yeah, and the video was more so to serve the purpose of, okay, look, unless you can properly argue this point, you shouldn't go into debates with that being your only point. Because if someone can throw some dirt onto... So, like, this modern philosopher, David Hume's, he once had a quote I like. It was essentially, those that come in thinking they are superior or have a superior stance or a superior ego or superior mind often fall short when they come into a questioning, an inquisitive disposition. Basically, you come into a debate or an argument or present an idea in which you just assume you're right, like you're the best, like they're not going to disprove my Platonic stuff. Mm-hmm. You're more likely to fall flat when it comes to running into someone that's not willing to accept your idea for what it is. They're not willing to accept it at face value. So if I get into a debate with you and you make this proposition and I provide a counterexample, if you're from the mindset of, oh, it has to be right because, you know, a bunch of people on Discord said it's right, you're going to fall flat. Because when it comes to a debate with me and you, it doesn't matter what other people said prior. It matters what you can tell me and what you can prove to me. So your argument should not be crutched upon the Platonic concept idea. It should be upon the actual feats. You don't need Platonic concept to be outerversal, especially when your argumentation for Platonic concept sucks. I kind of got lucky. I didn't run into any like people with philosophical backgrounds when I was debating outerversal stuff. Because they probably could have caught me slipping.
That's true. Yeah, like because like with debates, because like as you said before, like, you know, you could say like you could use like an incorrect like evidence, and if the opposite party cannot, you know, argue it, you know, then you win, even if it is, you know, like incorrect. And you know that was, you know, that was like kind of the issue with some of the people you debated, and obviously, you know, a W is a W. But yeah,
it's I have to say that a lot in my comment section. Like, my job in a debate, I'm not obligated or supposed to argue for my opponent. It's
Exactly.
their job to prove I'm wrong. And if they can't do that, then I win. Just because I have to tell a bunch of people this as well. Just because someone wins a debate doesn't make them right. It doesn't define the stance they won on as the. If that's the case, Wolverine's out here soloing most of fiction because I've won plenty of stupid debates with Wolverine and Swiper and Itachi. I beat someone on a debate with the one above all before Itachi. Doesn't mean because I won, Itachi slaps the one above all. It's just I happen to win the debate. So we do need to get past that notion that this character wins because Splash won a debate with using that character in this situation. No, it just means I could argue better than my opponent.
Oh yeah.
So it doesn't mean I'm actually. That's the whole thing behind like inductive and deductive reasoning or stances. One is where you try to provide an argument in which you do go through the works to make sure logically it's sound all the way through. Whereas like inductive, it's more so you try to provide the most solid case, not necessarily the most valid. So like that a lot of times that comes into playing devil's advocate. You just try to make the best case possible. It doesn't mean your case is valid. It doesn't mean you're actually right. You just try to make it appear so by argumentation. So.
Okay, I understand that. All right. And another thing, just to kind of branch off a little bit, could you explain to me the difference, of course, like with the DC, their speed is a lot different from, our own speed, because obviously there was I made this grave mistake. I bet a lot of people have, trying to compare DC speed to our own speed. And again, the scans you showed me, say otherwise.
Yeah, so there's something called Planck's constant speed, which has to do with light. So basically, also, after I thought about your question earlier, Marvel speed's also different from regular real life speed because technically you shouldn't be able to go faster than light in real life because your like mass would have to be lower than zero. But in Marvel, obviously, in DC you can go trillions of times the speed of light. But the point I brought up about DC was essentially to access the Speed Force, to access time traveling speed, you just have to be a little bit above the speed of light. So obviously, you go from speed of light to immeasurable, with like nothing in between. So light would have to operate differently in DC compared to our reality, which is quite possible, obviously. And we know this to be true because we just have simple theories of like multiverses in real life, but it's confirmed in Marvel and DC. So it would make sense if light or reality worked differently in those universes. So yeah, Marvel and DC are both faster than real life.
Okay, so
because you technically shouldn't be able to go above light speed, or you would not exist.
Oh, really? Oh, right.
Yeah, like the atom. For scientists, the tachyon particle accelerator.
No, this is.
It's funny at my work. It's okay if you don't. It's just funny because at my work, I actually teach like little 5-year-olds about it. So I think you can go to school and like flex on their teachers and be like, I know about the tachyon particle accelerator. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's basically scientists get together and they throw atoms at each other at near the speed of light because you can't go light speed because then you would have zero mass. But they throw them they're basically trying to create black holes by going at that speed. So if you go below zero mass, you could possibly achieve light speed or just nearly zero. Let me see if I could actually give you the scan of the light speed thing.
Oh, of course. So yeah, and one more quick thing. So there's no massively faster than light
in real life.
Yeah,
no.
like all right,
no.
All right. So what about fiction? Like, is that not a thing?
In fiction, they don't focus on that. So obviously, and you know, it kind of becomes sticky when debating it. Basically, what real life principles can we apply to fiction? Because obviously, some real life laws don't apply in fiction. One of those oftentimes comes down to speed.
Sorry,
So where
my apologies. My internet was playing up. I couldn't hear what you were saying previously.
what part did you cut out on?
When you was just going to basically explain about the whole, because my question was about the whole massively faster than light thing in fiction.
Oh, okay, yeah. So light speed, you have to be nearly zero mass, nearly at zero mass. That's why we can only throw the smallest particles at that speed. That's why you have lasers.
Oh yeah.
But if you go above that, you'd have to be zero mass below. But if you're at zero mass, you cease to exist.
Oh, you cease to
You
exist.
pretty much just become non-physical. Yeah, because you don't have any mass.
Oh right, yeah. The body.
You
would
have
just,
to have mass to be considered physical.
Oh yeah, because your body wouldn't be able to handle it, wouldn't it? Like you need. Yeah, I see what you mean now. Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't have any mass. You wouldn't occupy any space. You would not exist.
Not exist. Okay.
So, like, technically, if we went by like real life laws, in comics, when they go faster than light, they should be like, first off, when they're approaching light speed, they should be like nearly no mass. Which some characters can do because they can phase and change their density. But after light speed, they should be like their souls traveling or whatever. But
so like
obviously, it's not the case.
Yeah,
they kind of nitpick in comic books where to apply real life logic and real life physics, which makes it hard to power scale. To be honest,
I agree. Yeah, that can be a bit tricky. Trying to power scale some certain, like speed feats and stuff. I do agree.
Yeah, and like energy output and attack potency, because it's like, okay, because you honestly have a valid point if you're like, okay, we can't apply this actual law of physics to this situation. So what makes it valid that we can apply the other one in this situation? Because clearly we're not operating by the same rules. So who says we can, pick and choose our rules? If one's not valid, why is the other valid? That kind of thing. And then you get into semantics. But when you power scale, I would just advise you got to understand sometimes you can apply real life logic, real life physics to feats. Sometimes you kind of just have to go with what the comics and the verse provide for numbers and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Because like the whole thing with the Hulk, like when Death Battle tried to compare, the way like Hulk's rage, tried to compare it to like real life, how humans get angry and the endorphins and the adrenaline and stuff. And the Hulk, in fiction standpoint, his biology is a lot different from real life. So
wait, are you talking about the infamous screw attack scaling?
Yeah, Jesus, like
where they're like, Hulk will stop getting mad. Like, dude, shut up. Dude, that's nitpicking right there. That's like, okay, we're gonna apply a logic that was not presupposed by the comic books. So It's like, no, they literally emphasize that if he wants to, he'll just stay pissed.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and he's showing it many times to maintain, just being annoyed and just staying in his Hulk form many times.
Yeah, like World Breaker.
Yeah,
that's how it is sometimes. Literally, Hulk has separated from the human body. Like, that's such an absurd claim. That's why it's screw attack. And I do want to clarify. I feel like in the versus battle communities, we tend to just attack people instead of attacking their work. Like I do get on screw attack for the research and stuff, but they are pioneers in the versus battle community. And I think we lose sight of that a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd agree, but
yeah,
they did kind of put the versus battle on the map.
Oh, definitely. I agree. Yeah, like, because there wasn't really any like a few years ago, there wasn't really any like anyone doing like, oh, this character versus this character. It was kind of just like it was talked about, but it wasn't really executed until Death Battle popped up and started doing their own thing. Like, even though obviously, for argument's sake, disregarding their, inaccurate versus battles, like, yeah, they were the pioneers. They're the reasons why, community started gathering up, people started actually doing research and power scaling and so on and so forth, because I never saw this a few years ago. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and they just, honestly, we have to thank them for being bad at what they do, because then it wouldn't have gotten the. If we had just accepted them as an absolute truth, or like an absolute authority on the matter, we would never have a reason to argue.
Yeah,
so
that's very true.
Literally what these communities base their livelihoods off of. So you do have to think of it at some point. You got to acknowledge. It's like, I'm a basketball guy. I hated Kobe Bryant because I'm a Spurs fan, but I respect what he did for the game. Mm-hmm. You got to pay dues at some point.
Oh, yeah. So. That's very true. I agree with that. And got one more last thing to talk about as well. I think we kind of drawn a line here, sort of thing. It's about the Batman, situation with his reaction speed, because basically, I've always just thought Batman just had subsonic plus reaction speed, because I've seen a lot of bullet timer feats that he has. Me personally, I've been scouring for, relativistic to FTL feats, and I couldn't find any. And plus, a buddy of mine named Corin O'Keefe, he sent me the scan of Batman getting tagged by that laser and struggling to dodge them, and obviously that kind of reinforced my mind, thinking, okay, he can't, he should be, bullet level. But of course, you've shown me some feats. I've spoke to Gravity, one of my other verse debating friends, and he thinks those feats are outliers. But it's kind of not looking like that for me.
It does. I will say this: by conventional methodology of establishing consistency, it's very hard to prove a lot of characters are light speed, or just like the outerversal shit. Like, this character is consistently outerversal. It depends on what you accept as outerversal, I'm sorry, consistency.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to give you some light speed laser stuff. Hold on. I have I think I have a few on.
Of course, I'd love to see that.
But yeah, something I was pointing out in your scan you sent me was Neil Adams' run, and Neil Adams also had him swinging through Japan with or China with the Spectre, and they're keeping up together. So I mean, obviously it was a little. They didn't see, that's the beauty and ugliness of those kind of old school comics, is they didn't give a shit about power. They just wanted to give you the coolest storytelling, most fun storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. It was all inconsistency. It was just purely for entertainment. Yeah,
because no one honestly cared back then about why is this character able to keep up with this one? They just wanted to see their favorite characters clash.
That is very true. Because when we were younger, I never gave a fuck about he can he can dodge light speed lasers and stuff. It was just about my role model character, he's just looking like a badass, and he's doing all this cool shit. I never really looked at it from a logical aspect. But yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and it's it does. That's why I kind of want to cover lore more now too, not just scaling, because I think we lose track of how good stories are and appreciation for the stories, and instead just focus on, I'm reading this story because I heard the scaling's crazy. It's like that's not what comics are really for, man. That you're supposed to enjoy the stories that you're scaling. You're supposed to, most of the characters I scale, I've read, I enjoy reading.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it is kind of a shame that the versus battle community is kind of ruining the enjoyment of just reading good story. So yeah, it's when you argue actual historical consistency, it gets a little murky for pretty much any DC character. Like I remember I heard someone in my VC, and he was actually pretty good leader, said, "Oh, to be honest, Flash has more outerversal feats than he doesn't." I'm like, dude, shut up. Right. Well, we both know that's not true. This guy is like, when you think about how many issues he's been in, how many stories he's been in, how many different arcs he's been in, that he's not outerversal more than 50% of the time over a span of like 70 years. Come on.
Yeah,
that's silly.
It is. I've yet to see like super consistent outerversal feats from Flash. He's just isn't. Like Flash has been, clapped by characters who don't even scrape outerversal. Nowhere.
He fights a boomerang. He fights a guy with a boomerang. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Are you Captain Boomerang's outerversal all the time? And I'm gonna say kick rocks, but it's like, so basically to keep it short, it comes down to we have to presuppose what we will accept as consistency. So in a debate, no one wants to see a debate where you're like, okay, show me over half of his stories all time that he's like this speed. So, dude, that's a lot of stories to cover in one debate. So we kind of have to come up with a general number to kind of set our standard for consistency. So, in a debate, typically I ask for 3 scans from different stories proving a character's at that level. So, not 3 scans from one story, because that could just be an outlier story. Mm-hmm. Just 3 different scenarios where they displayed this ability or this power. 3 to 5 is generally the accepted norm in a debate. But in terms of actual statistically, are they consistently that level? That's a lot harder to prove. So,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I think I gave you 6 or 7. Not including ones I've shown before.
Yeah, you've given me a few scans. Yeah, definitely enough to convince me, definitely, and give me some things to think about. But yeah, because one more thing as well, because with outliers as well, because All Sunday, New 52, Outerversal, obviously All Sunday is very ignorant, and I tried to, because I had it's like a kind of a text debate with him. And I basically tried to say, I'm trying to explain to him, those feats that Superman has done aren't consistent. Those outerversal, the multiversal feats. New 52 I'm on about. I'm saying, consistently, he's large star, solar system. But if you want to use composite, you could get him to those levels. But of course, All Sunday is extremely ignorant, doesn't listen to anything. He just goes, oh, wow, they just did the feat. And, I just wanted to know what's your opinion on outlier feats? Do you think are they fine to use in debates?
So the only times outliers are really acceptable is composite debates. If you're arguing about a character in base or normal assumptions, outliers should not be taken into consideration. The only time you can really get away with outliers is if you're good enough to argue why it's not an outlier. But you would have to be a pretty good debater, and I'm cool with All Sunday now, but obviously he's not the best at forming arguments.
Yeah,
that you've seen. So
burden of proof.
He's not very good at pushing the consistent New 52 wing. It's just he's just not good at it. No. But no, I feel like we all know deep down, consistency wise, obviously, New 52 is not outerversal. He's not some absurd level. We feel that way about all the characters. Very few characters are consistently where we honestly put them at. The only argument you can make, or a common argument you could make for outliers, is you could argue that's them fully ready to fight or fully engaged in fully called to fight. So you can make the argument, in a standard battle assumption, both our characters are fully committed to the fight. That means my character demonstrates his real power when he's going all out. So my character would use that power on yours. That's really one of the only solid arguments. for those scenarios. But a lot of times you're not able to argue that. So
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that.
you would have to demonstrate that's not an outlier. That's actually just your character going all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then you get into the whole, okay, but what would make him go all out against that sort of thing?
Okay, I understand. Yeah, that's actually helped me a bit more about the outlier thing. Thanks for that. But yeah, that's all I've got or that's all the questions for me for today. But yes, thank you for appearing on my channel, Splash. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's no problem. You've been in my community for a while, so I kind of just want to, And,
Yeah.
and like I said, shout out to your channel because you're actually the first really person I've seen analyze the debates we have within the community, which I think is interesting. It's always fun to see a breakdown of the community from the outside perspective of, okay, I saw him argue this, I saw him argue that. And you do a very good job at highlighting the difference between who made a better argument versus who would actually win, which is people lose sight of that constantly.
That's true. But yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed that. I mean, hey, it's very innovative, and I love doing the debate analysis, especially with Sin and Santa. That debate was very, very close and
Dude,
very
they were
heavy.
spamming scans. They dropped like 60 scans. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, literally, it was like a Wild West showdown. Like they were blasting each other with like, bloody like 44 magnums and shit. Crazy. Like
Yeah, and it's actually funny. So they had that debate before,
oh right.
but we weren't able to record it. Like something happened to the recording file, it wouldn't save.
Oh dear.
So it was actually crazier the first time because they didn't know what each other was going to say. So they're just throwing shit. Like they were literally throwing everything they had. And it was actually a lot more controlled the second time, and it came out cleaner because of it. But yeah, if you thought that was Wild West, first time was nuts. I actually hopped in. I was like, dude, this is some crazy shit. Like, y'all are spamming right now.
Yo.
But
I wish I was there.
Nah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? You haven't seen the Chewbacca R2 one, right?
I haven't seen that yet. I will soon. It's just I've been really busy with stuff today, but I'll definitely be catching that up.
Nah, you're all good. Just they said the best part. People actually started crying in the debate, but look out for your racist towards Wookiees remark I made. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
I made an argument for racism against Wookiees.
I'll definitely be watching out for that part. But yeah, definitely, man. But yeah, Splash, thank you for appearing today, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and keep building on your channel, man. Hopefully, I'm gonna post this link on my channel too, so hopefully we could start getting your fan base up a lot more.
Oh, thank you, Splash. I highly appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Gonna keep going. But yeah, hey. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, check out my power scaling videos. Make sure you jump over to Splash's channel, subscribe to his channel. Make sure you click those ads, help your boy out. And if you
hell yeah, brother. Yeah. And they're spamming the double ads.
Yeah,
I'm psyched. I'm like, yeah.
Spam. And make sure you if you want to support your boy on a personal level, hit him up on the Patreon. Check out those tiers. Splash has great tiers. If you want to become a better debater and understand to debate and analyze a situation, of course, check out those tiers. He gives great advice and of course great scans. But yes, folks, this is Forest Screen signing out. Peace, folks.